They called it Varun's Stand, a place so far from Sol that Earth itself was just a forgotten rumor, a remote outpost on the edge of known space, orbiting a dead star, crawling with sand-swept ruins and the ghosts of failed empires. And that's where they sent them. Earth's elite, the kind of men who didn't belong in politics or parades. Not heroes. Weapons. There were 6 of them. No insignias. No ranks. Just call signs burned into neural tags, and scars that told stories no one wanted to hear twice. They didn't arrive in a standard dropship. No banners, no announcement, just a low-orbit kinetic insertion. Atmospheric burn. Impact like the fist of a god. By the time the dust settled, 2 of the Varun scouts were already dead, not from gunfire, but from what one soldier called proximity judgment, meaning you stood too close to them while breathing wrong. The galaxy already feared humans, but these weren't just humans. They were the reason the Terran command stopped putting names on their black dossiers. And the locals, the Orokai, a proud reptilian race hardened by centuries of war, saw them as a joke at first. They mistook the silence for weakness. No one from Earth had spoken during the diplomatic introductions. Just a single encrypted signal sent to the Varun command. Observe, or evacuate. That night, the sky burned. The Orokai had long fortified the ruins of Varun, thinking it sacred, once the capital of an empire that enslaved 3 moons. But when the humans walked in, they didn't knock. They didn't wait. They breached, moved like shadows between old towers and ancient artillery, disabling systems before the Orokai even realized the war had begun. Ike, the unit's unofficial leader, a man with the posture of a war god and eyes like dead stars, didn't speak much. His rifle was his voice. His squad followed his rhythm like a song only killers knew. They didn't fight to win. They fought to make sure no one else tried. At first, the galaxy had watched with curiosity. The United Races sent observers, cameras, analysts. They wanted to study the human approach. What they got was a 9-minute footage loop banned from all civilized systems. A single video showing what happened when Earth sent its worst to protect its peace. The footage showed 3 things. A charging Orokai war beast cut down mid-roar without a sound. A human soldier dragging a wounded comrade through fire while gunning down targets with a sidearm held backward. And Ike, standing atop a mountain of corpses at sunrise, eyes closed like he was listening for something. The message wasn't subtle. You don't outgun Earth, you don't outbleed Earth, and you sure as hell don't challenge Earth's elite. Back home, these men were ghosts, forgotten by the governments that made them, left to rot in silence until someone needed a line no one else would cross. Here on Varun, they were about to remind the galaxy why the humans weren't welcome in peace talks. Because Earth didn't send diplomats. It sent monsters wrapped in flesh. The galaxy already feared humanity's will to survive. But when they saw these 6, when they witnessed Earth's elite warriors, something deeper took root. Not just fear, doubt. Because if this was what Earth kept in its back pocket, what the hell else was it hiding? They said Ike used to have a different name, something simple, civilian, a word you'd call out at a family dinner or write down on a school registration form. But that name died somewhere in the sand, on a forgotten battlefield where the last orders were hold position. And his entire unit burned because some politician wanted to negotiate first. After that, he stopped answering to anything human. His only answer was silence. And the gun. The other 5 didn't ask questions. That was the rule. You don't dig into another man's past unless he hands you the shovel. And Ake never did. Varun's second night was colder. Colder than it should have been, for a planet with twin suns and volcanic crust. The Orokai weren't seen for hours. Scouts disappeared. Supply lines failed. Communications to orbit got jammed by something unknown, Not tech, not natural. Intentional. Psychological. "They're trying to isolate us," said the one called Bear. Thick neck, cybernetic jaw from a past ambush, spoke like gravel breaking under boots. Classic trap. "They think fear works." "It does," said Vox, the smallest one. A sniper with no confirmed misses and zero tolerance for conversation. "Just not on us." They moved as a unit, no spoken orders. Ike lifted a hand, 2 fingers up, scout sweep pattern. Gray, the tall one with the long rifle and dead humor, peeled off with Craw, the unit's comms expert and demolition specialist. 5 clicks, no more, Ike murmured. Craw nodded. Loud or quiet? Quiet. For now. While Gray and Craw disappeared into the ruins, the rest settled into a temporary hold. The skeletal frame of a crumbling Orakai tower, once used as a power relay. Ike stood on the edge, helmet off, eyes on the dark horizon. Behind him, Bear pulled out a metal flask, not for drinking, for remembering. "I used to have a daughter," Bear said. "She was 6 when I got the letter." Ike didn't turn. "She doesn't even know I'm alive. They told her I died a hero. Easier to bury the dead than explain why you built a killer and couldn't turn him off." Still, Ike didn't speak. "Doesn't it bother you?" Bear asked, voice low. "That we only matter when something needs to be destroyed?" Ike finally turned. His voice was flat. "You think we're the only ones they forgot?" 4 clicks out. Gray and Craw were moving through narrow ravines of cracked stone and ancient bones, reminders of Varun's many failed empires. Craw's scanner pulsed soft blue, picking up faint signals. "Movement," he whispered. "Southridge." Gray adjusted his scope. "Thermals?" "Cold signatures, deliberate suppression, camouflaged patrols." Gray smirked. "Amateurs." But they weren't amateurs. The Orakai had adapted fast, faster than expected. Their tactics were changing. No more brute force attacks. Now it was silence, traps, and ghost formations. A quick transmission buzzed through, a single word from Ike. "Watchers." That was all it took. Gray's eyes narrowed. Watchers weren't scouts. They were execution teams. If the Orakai were deploying them, it meant they knew who they were dealing with now. Craw crouched behind cover, pulling out a compact charge unit, prepped in case they needed to burn and bail. But Gray held up a hand. No retreat yet. From the darkness, shapes emerged. 6 Orakai warriors, not armored. Bare skin, ritual cuts along the neck, suicide troops. That's when Craw whispered it. Not watchers, zealots. Shit. Back at the relay tower, Bear and Vox caught the signal distortion first. Their HUDs glitched. Not an attack, a warning, a prelude. Then came the scream. Not human, not alien, something deeper. It vibrated in their bones. Ike stood perfectly still. "Sound weapon?" Vox asked, hand on rifle. "No," Ike said. "Belief." Bear loaded his shotgun with a cold grin. "Then let's break their religion." The zealots didn't come in guns blazing. They came in waves, silent and inhumanly fast, claws, bone knives, and no care for survival. Craw dropped the first 2 with plasma bursts. Gray covered the rear, picking off one that leapt mid-air. But the 4th one? It reached Craw, slashed him deep across the ribs before Gray embedded a knife in its skull. Craw dropped to his knees, blood flooding his combat suit. "Move!" Gray barked, dragging him back toward the ridge. "We're pulling out!" Craw coughed, spitting red. "Tell Ike. They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to die." When the 2 stumbled back into the tower ruins, Craw barely conscious, Ike didn't ask questions. He just pointed to the wound, then to Bear. "Patch him." To Gray, he said, "You saw zealots?" 6, probably more, organized, ritualized, and they're not scared of dying." "They should be," Bear muttered. But Ike knew. This wasn't just a skirmish anymore. This was the start of a sacred war. The Orkai weren't defending territory. They were defending prophecy. In the Orkai command citadel, an obsidian structure half buried in the mountains, the high priest stood before the elders. "They walk without fear," he hissed. "They bleed and do not falter. The prophecy warned us of such beings, the hollow men of earth." One of the elders leaned forward, mechanical lungs hissing. "Then we must awaken the old arsenal, the weapons left behind by the First Empire." The priest nodded. "And we must show the galaxy what happens when Earth thinks it can walk among gods." Back at the tower, Craw slept, patched but pale. Gray stood watch, rifle always ready. Bear cleaned his blades, Vox polished his scope in silence, and Ike sat by the fire. No one dared speak for a while. Finally, Vox broke the silence. "What happens when the galaxy gets tired of fearing us?" Ike stared into the flame. "Then we stop giving them the option." Flashback. Earth. 10 years ago. Ike knelt in a burned village, smoke rising, bodies charred. His commanding officer, an idiot with too many medals and not enough scars, had ordered an orbital strike after the squad went in. They called it an error in timing. Civilians got caught. So did 3 of Ike's men. Later, they gave him a medal. Ike melted it down and turned it into a bullet. Back on Varun, the signal cleared. A transmission broke through. From orbit, Earth command, text only. "Hold Varun. No evac, no backup, no survivors expected." Vox read it aloud. Bear laughed bitterly. Gray just muttered, "Classic." But Ike didn't blink. He stood, loaded his rifle, and looked at them one by one. "No backup?" he said. "Good. Fewer people to bury." They moved out. No hesitation. No fear. By sunrise, the 6 were 5. Craw didn't wake. Internal bleeding. Quiet death. No screams. Just the slow fade into nothing. Ike stood over the body. He didn't cry. Didn't pray. Just took Craw's tags, snapped them in half, and buried him with his knife, blade down, the way warriors go home. Then he spoke, low and steady. "They'll remember Craw not because he died," he said, "but because he took a piece of Varun with him." That's how it worked in their world. You didn't die clean. You died leaving a stain the universe couldn't scrub out. In orbit, alien diplomats were already negotiating Earth's surrender. "They'll never hold the planet," said the Orkai emissary. "They're 5 men against an army." But a single admiral from Earth, a woman with gray eyes and too much classified clearance, only smiled. "You don't understand," she said. "They're not here to hold it. They're here to break it." The silence before the storm came at dawn. Gray was the first to feel it, not hear, feel, a pressure in his chest, like the atmosphere itself had grown heavy with intent. He stood on the broken edge of a tower spire, eyes narrowed toward the southern ridgeline, where the Orkai's signal interference had started pulsing again. Not in chaos this time. In rhythm. "Drums?" Vox asked, checking his scope from the east watch. "No," Gray muttered. "Ceremony." Ike stood alone in what used to be a command hub, now just shattered glass and crumbling terminals. He held Craw's broken tag in one hand. It was still stained with blood. Not cleaned, not wiped. There was no ritual for the dead in this unit, no farewell speeches. You carried their death the same way you carried your gear, tight, heavy, and personal. Bear approached him from behind. "They're mobilizing," he said. "You were right. This isn't war anymore. It's a message." Ike didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was lower than usual. "Then we send one back." The Orkai moved in patterns, something like a religion mixed with war strategy. Their war priests directed the zealots. Their engineers activated weapons buried for centuries beneath Varun's crust. The first tremor hit an hour later. Then came the machines. They weren't Orokai-made. Ancient constructs, 2 stories high, spider-limbed, coated in rust and symbols no one could translate. AI cores melted into madness. They moved like corrupted gods, hissing out steam and data in equal measure. Bear saw the first one crawl over the ridge. "Great," he muttered. "Dead tech with a death wish?" The construct didn't speak. It just watched. A moment later, it launched an EMP blast that fried 3 of the squad's recon drones and lit up their HUDs with static. Gray cursed. "They've got machine priests now?" "Worse," Vox replied. "Scavengers got religion." Down in the valley, more Orokai troops advanced, covered by the walking machines. Thousands, formations like waves, backed by drum hymns that shook the ruins themselves. Back at their outpost, the humans geared up. The mood wasn't fear. It was finality. There were 5 of them. A dead planet. No air support, no reinforcements, just ghosts and purpose. Ike looked at them. "We don't hold this ground." Bear raised an eyebrow. "Then what?" "We ruin it." Vox tilted his head. "We going scorched?" Ike nodded. "We light this world up so bad they'll rename fear after us." The plan was insane. That's why it would work. They would split. 2-man units to plant charges across the Orkai's supply paths, artillery nests, and command relay stations. They would leave behind false signal trails, decoys, broken bodies to send a message. You aren't hunting prey. You're provoking predators. Gray and Vox took the North Passage, full of collapsed caverns and bone-marked tunnels. Bear went with Ike through the old aqueduct ruins, the most direct and exposed route. They left nothing behind but Craw's grave and scorched footprints. North Passage. Gray moved through the dark like he belonged in it. His eyes had long since adjusted. His hands worked on autopilot, setting charges, disabling Orkai trip nets, slicing open an enemy throat when necessary. Vox followed, eerily silent. He never asked questions, never panicked, but even he paused when they found it. A chamber lined with Orkai dead. Not human kills. Their own, all marked with ritual wounds, throats cut in a perfect arc, eyes burned out. Vox spoke for the first time in an hour. "Why?" Gray stepped closer, scanning symbols on the wall. "They were offerings." "To what?" Gray looked up. "Not what? Who?" "South Passage." Ike and Bear moved fast, brutal, efficient. Every 200 meters, Bear laid down an old Earth ordnance, hardwired plasma charges meant to collapse tunnels from the inside. The Orkai didn't show up at first. Then they came in dozens, then hundreds. Bear laughed as he pulled the trigger on the first charge. The blast echoed down the ruins, caving in half a ridge and burying 2 full squads. "They're still coming," he grunted, reloading. "Good," Ike muttered. "I'm tired of chasing." They dropped into the old aqueduct trench and moved with purpose, leaving behind fire and shattered bones. By nightfall, the galaxy's surveillance drones, hidden in orbit, began broadcasting live feeds. The footage didn't match any protocol. Viewers across systems saw images of 5 humans painting ancient ruins red with enemy blood. They saw Bear rip a metal priest apart with his bare hands after his shotgun jammed. They saw Vox tag 10 moving targets from a ruined tower while bleeding from the gut. They saw Ike face down a machine construct alone, stabbing its optic core with Craw's shattered tag. The galaxy didn't understand, but they felt it. Humanity was not fighting to win. They were fighting to end it. In the Orkai High Citadel, panic began to show. "We underestimated them," one general hissed. "They are few," another argued. "They are enough," the priest snarled. They make planets scream. They carry no flags, yet burn symbols into history. We must retreat. No, the priest said. We cleanse. If they won't die, we will erase the land around them. The command was given. Planetary cleansing protocol. Operation Cinder Maw. They would burn their own continent to kill the humans. Back in the ruins, Ike received the intercepted signal. His expression didn't change. He simply said, "They're going to try and glass us." Bear growled. "Cowards?" "Scared cowards," Vox added. "Which is worse?" Gray linked up via comms. "We've set all charges. We can light this place anytime." "Then we go to the source," Ike said. "The Citadel." Bear blinked. "You want to take their capital?" "I want them to look me in the eye when they fail." The other men didn't question it. They just started walking. The Citadel stood like a wound carved into Varun's bones. Obsidian walls, shaped like fangs, acid rivers around its base, anti-air systems scanned the sky. 1,000 troops guarded the entrance. 5 humans walked through the smoke. They didn't knock. They breached. Bear went through the front, loaded with grenades and the fury of a man with nothing left. Gray sniped from a half-collapsed tower, clearing the walkways. Vox ran flank, precision and death. Ike led point, cutting down priests and guards alike like he was born in their nightmares. They reached the central chamber in 10 minutes. Inside stood the high priest, unarmed, proud. "You think you've won?" he sneered. "You've only provoked what sleeps beneath." Ike raised his weapon. The priest smiled. "You are just men." Ike pulled the trigger. Exactly. The blast echoed across Varun. At the same time, every planted charge detonated. Supply lines, fortifications, temples. Weapon vaults, gone. Smoke rose in pillars. The entire Orokai infrastructure crumbled. From orbit, the diplomats watched. A voice broke through the chatter. Earth's admiral again. Flat. Calm. "Now do you understand?" Silence followed. The elite squad walked out of the Citadel. Bloodied. Burned. Breathing heavy. 5 went in. 5 came out. Behind them, the capital of an empire lay in ruins. That night, under a shattered sky, Ake sat alone by a new fire. Kraw's other tag dangled in his hand. Gray approached, sat beside him. "You think they'll try again?" he asked. Ike looked at the flames. "Not for a long time," Gray smirked. "You gonna tell command we're alive?" Ike shook his head. "Let 'em think we're dead. Makes the legend better." They sat in silence. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was rethinking everything. Because if 5 forgotten men from a dying world could do this, what else was Earth hiding? The ash hadn't settled. Not on Varun. Not in orbit. Not across the networked systems of the galaxy's United Races Council. In fact, ash had become currency. Every major media station, Terran or alien, ran footage of the 5 men walking out of the Citadel's ruin. Frame-by-frame breakdowns. Conspiracy analysts debated their origins. Religious factions called them harbingers. Politicians called them terrorists. Soldiers called them gods. Only one phrase stuck in the mouths of the common folk: the burn team. That wasn't their call sign. Earth never gave them one. But the name fit, because they didn't come to conquer. They came to erase. Ike stood on a ridge overlooking what used to be a capital. Black smoke still curled from the rubble. The stars above were distant and silent, like they were watching carefully, waiting to decide if this planet still deserved to exist. Behind him, the others were quiet. Bear sat cleaning his shotgun, barrel cracked from overuse. Gray leaned against a half-buried relic, smoking a filtered cig he claimed was for nerves, even though everyone knew he didn't have any. Vox stared at the sky through a cracked lens, one eye bruised purple from close combat. Nobody asked what came next. Nobody wanted to. Until the message arrived, encrypted, Earth origin, line of sight satellite. The voice was familiar. Cold. Bureaucratic. Unit confirmed alive. Mission success recorded. No recovery vessel authorized. Operation Burn Team remains classified. Status, non-existent. Bear spat. Translation: thanks for saving the galaxy. Now rot in hell. Gray nodded. Classic Earth Command. Ike didn't say anything. He was watching the horizon. Vox finally spoke. What now? That was the question no one wanted answered, because Earth had sent them to die and they hadn't, which meant they were a problem now. A day passed, then 2. No supplies, no contact, just Varun's dust and the ghosts of what they'd done. The Orkai were gone. Some fled into the hills, others off-world. A few had stayed behind. The old, the broken, the ones too proud or too weak to run. On the 3rd day, a group of them approached the squad's camp. They didn't come armed, just robes, hands up, eyes down. Ike met them alone. The elder stepped forward. His skin was cracked, scaled, but his voice was steady. "You are demons," he said in his own tongue. Ike understood enough to nod. Demons who burn prophets and shatter mountains. Still, Ike said nothing. The elder stepped closer. "But you saved us from ourselves." That made Ike tilt his head. The elder pointed back toward the ruins. The priest caste was planning to burn the entire southern hemisphere, sacrifice the weak to preserve the legacy of the strong. Your fury stopped them. He extended something, a small bone-carved pendant, symbol of Orkai truce. "Take this, human. You have no name here, only fear. And respect." Ike accepted it silently. The Orkai left without another word. That night, the fire burned low. Gray passed the pendant around. "You ever get a thank you gift from someone you wiped out?" "Nope," Bear grunted. "Usually just lawsuits." Vox smirked. "Maybe Earth should have sent us to make peace treaties instead of war." Ike finally spoke. "They didn't send us to win." The others looked at him. "They sent us to make sure no one would want to fight again." "And we did," Bear added. Ake's eyes darkened. "No, we just started something bigger." In orbit, on a Shadow-class Terran recon vessel, Admiral Rin watched the footage feed. Her face was unreadable. Dozens of reports littered her desk. Satellite imaging, psychological analyses, diplomatic memos. One document was marked top priority: burn team, public threat, or strategic asset. She stared at it. The Council wanted answers. The Senate wanted control. The private contractors wanted autopsies and DNA, but none of them understood. These men weren't tools. They were symbols, and symbols couldn't be controlled, only feared. She keyed in her private comms and sent a single encrypted message. "Do not interfere. Let the myth grow." Back on Varun, the squad began moving again. Ike had found a still-active Orkai shuttle, beat up, scorched, barely flyable, but it had enough fuel and just enough navigation left to make it off the surface. Gray looked skeptical. "You trust alien tech?" "I trust desperation," Ike answered. They loaded what little gear they had left. Bear strapped Kraw's spare tag to the dashboard. "No way we leave him behind." The engines sputtered. The hull groaned, but it flew. They didn't return to Earth. Not even close. They punched coordinates into deep space, dead zones, uncharted sectors, the kind of places even pirates avoid. They didn't want answers. They wanted freedom. And in their silence, the myth grew louder. Weeks passed. The squad took contracts, unofficial, off-record, highly classified jobs for colonies Earth had long abandoned. Some called them mercs, others called them guardians. But one name kept spreading: Ghost Company. In the Barren Belt, they stopped a slaver ring that had been operational for over 15 years. In the Scythe Nebula, they broke a mining cartel using child labor. On Station R9, they assassinated a rogue AI that had taken 200,000 lives and broadcast the kill shot to every system on the relay net. Each time, they left nothing behind but fire, ash, and silence. They didn't speak to the media. They didn't claim medals. They didn't leave survivors unless they were innocent. They became something bigger than soldiers. They became fear itself. But inside, they were still men. Bear had nightmares. He never admitted it, but the others could tell. He drank more, spoke less. Vox became colder, more detached. He started marking his kills in his own blood. Gray, he just laughed more, but it wasn't real laughter. And Ake? He barely slept. His dreams were fire, and Craw's face, and Earth Command's last words. No recovery vessel authorized. It haunted him more than anything else. One night, while orbiting a dead moon, the comms lit up. Unsecured channel, Terran accent. "This is Commander Lorne, Earth Military Exo Division, requesting contact with Ghost Company." The room went silent. They hadn't heard from Earth in almost 6 months. Ike stared at the screen, but didn't answer. Bear looked at him. "You want to ghost him?" Ike was quiet. "No," he finally said. "I want to know why they're crawling back." They opened the line. Lorne's face appeared, weathered, gray-eyed, not military brass, a field man. "Didn't think this line would work," he admitted. "Wasn't sure you were alive." "We're not," Ike replied flatly. Lorne nodded. "Fair. I won't waste time. Earth's got a problem." "Earth's always got a problem," Bear muttered. "This one's different. Something's coming. Not political, not local. Something off-chart. We lost contact with 3 outposts on the far reach in under 48 hours. No distress, no debris. Just nothing." He leaned forward. "You've been off-grid. You've seen things. If anyone's got a chance of stopping it, it's you." Vox rolled his eyes. "So now we matter again?" Lorne didn't flinch. "No, you don't. Not to the council, not to the media, not to the brass, but to me?" He leaned in closer. "You're the last ones I'd trust to finish what others can't start." Silence. Ike finally replied. "Send coordinates." After the screen went dark, the others looked at him. "You serious?" Gray asked. "You want to go back?" Ike stood. "No, I want to go forward." Bear grinned. "God damn." Vox checked his ammo. Gray exhaled, slow. "All right, let's go see what the galaxy's trying to hide this time." They powered up the shuttle, and the stars opened wide. They arrived at Outpost Helix 4 72 hours later. No beacon, no surface lights, no movement, just a silent hunk of steel and stone, orbiting a dead star, floating like a forgotten tomb. From orbit, the station looked intact. No hull damage, no signs of breach. But there were no heat signatures, no life, not even rats. Bear stared at the scans, brow furrowed. "No power, no bodies, no signs of struggle?" Gray muttered. "That's not a station. That's a coffin with an attitude." Ike didn't respond. He was already suiting up. They docked manually. No AI to guide them, no signal to respond. Vox used a hardline to override the airlock, bypassing the station's primary access codes in less than 2 minutes. When the door opened, they were met with nothing. No gunfire, no alarm, no resistance. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels like it's watching you. Inside, everything was clean. Too clean. Desks still had mugs of half-drunk coffee. Monitors were on, but looping static. Personal belongings were untouched. Jackets on chairs, tablets mid-login, boots beside bunks. It looked like everyone had simply stood up and walked out at once. Bear picked up a kid's toy from a recreation room, a small rubber ball with painted stars. He squeezed it once, then tossed it back down. "This ain't right," he said. "You evacuate. You don't leave like this." Gray nodded slowly. "You abandon a station, you strip it, loot it, scorch it. This," he motioned around, "this is cleaner than retreat. This looks like surrender." Ake looked at the empty hallway ahead. "No, this looks like worship." They split into 2 teams. Ike, Bear, and Vox went down toward command. Gray took the upper levels alone to access any remaining logs from the ops core. They stayed in constant comms, but the deeper they went, the weaker the signal became. Not due to distance, due to interference, artificial, pulsing in strange, rhythmic patterns, like the station itself was humming in a language none of them could understand. Gray climbed through the vents, making his way to the upper data tower. Every now and then, he heard things. Not voices, not words, just breathing. Slow, hollow, not human. He paused in one shaft, drew his sidearm, and waited. Nothing moved. The breathing stopped, but the moment he lowered his gun, something scratched behind the wall. Then it was gone. In command, Ike found what was left of the main data core. Fried, not sabotaged, melted, like it had overheated without any power source. Bear stared at it. "What could do that?" Vox checked the wiring. "Something feeding off heat signatures, not power, not fuel, just organic warmth." They found the first corpse 10 minutes later, or what was left of one. It wasn't torn apart, it wasn't shot, it was hollow, skin intact, muscles evaporated, organs gone, bones left behind like glass tubes inside a flesh suit. Vox backed up. "This isn't war. This is feeding." Ike didn't blink. He picked up the corpse's ID tag and read the name. Lintet Rhine Talvik, a soldier from Earth's last terraformation project, trained for heat, radiation, acid storms, a man built to survive extinction-level environments, and something still ate him from the inside out. Meanwhile, Gray reached the ops core. The door had been welded shut, from the inside. He cut through, one layer at a time, breathing hard. Sweat lined his gloves. As the seal broke, he stepped inside, rifle up. The room was pitch black. Then a flicker, a single screen, half lit, pulsing green text across a cracked monitor. He stepped closer. It was a log. Audio file NUC4973. Operator, M. Holden, timestamp. Unknown. We thought it was a signal, a deep frequency hum. We tracked it from the far reach. They told us it was just static, background noise from collapsed stars, but it started to answer us. No one believed it. Then the dreams started. Same dreams, same voice, same whisper. Bring me closer. The commander initiated lockdown. It was too late. Something came through the hull. No breach alarms, no atmosphere leak. Just, it walked inside. Not in light, in sound, in mind. We shot it. We burned it. But the bullets didn't land in the same place twice. It took our names first, then our memories, then our shape. If you're reading this, you're already hearing it. The screen cut out. Gray didn't move for a full minute. Then he turned. Something was standing in the doorway. Ike felt it the same moment Gray stopped responding. Not through the comms, through the walls. The air changed, got thicker. Like the pressure inside the station had reversed. Like gravity wanted to pull them inward instead of down. Bear staggered, holding his head. "Voices," he gasped. "Inside. I'm hearing." Then the lights went out. Not all at once, one by one. Down the hallways, across the decks, like a ripple of darkness. Ike raised his rifle. Flashlights. They clicked them on. It didn't help, because the shadows weren't empty anymore. Something stepped into the light. Not walking, not crawling, something in between. It had a human face, or at least something wearing one. Rhine Talvek's face. Stretched too wide, eyeless, smiling. The mouth didn't move, but Ike still heard it. "You left us in the black. You fed us your best. Now we remember." Bear opened fire. Shotgun rounds punched through the thing. It didn't flinch. Vox dropped a flash charge. The hallway lit up white. For a split second, they saw it. Long limbs. No bones. Shifting flesh, like it didn't know what shape to take. 100 faces trying to scream from beneath the skin. Then the lights went out again. Ike grabbed Vox and Bear and pulled them back. "We move. Now." Upstairs, Gray wasn't dead. Not yet. He'd emptied 2 mags into the thing wearing the comm officer's face. It didn't bleed, but it didn't chase either. It just whispered. "You remember war? We remember silence. You bring us closer." He threw an EMP charge and sprinted back into the vents. They regrouped at the docking bay. No questions, no debates. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were prey. Ike keyed the launch override. "We leave now," Bear growled. "And let that thing survive?" Ike stared at him. "It's not surviving. It's spreading." Vox paled. "Outposts Alpha and Theta. They went dark last week. No signs of conflict." "Same signs as this one?" Gray asked. Vox nodded grimly. "Yeah." Bear swore. "It's already off station." They launched in silence. The shuttle shook violently, not from pursuit, but from resonance. Some kind of frequency pulsed from the station as they ascended. A sound they all felt in their teeth, in their bones, in their minds. Ike closed his eyes. It was saying goodbye. Or hello. In orbit, they sat in silence. No one spoke for a full 5 minutes. Then Gray finally muttered, "That was an alien." Ike nodded. "No, it wasn't." Vox looked at him. "What the hell was it then?" Ike leaned forward. "It was something we left behind." That night, they didn't sleep. No one did. Because even out in the black, even with Hull between them and the station, they could still hear it, whispers, in dreams, calling them back. 2 days after leaving Outpost Helix 4, they hit a dead relay. That shouldn't have happened. Terran relay satellites were laced through every major system. Fail-safes, redundancies, fallback nodes. If one broke, 3 more took over. But here, nothing. The last signal they caught was partial. Cracked audio. 1 line. They remember Earth. Then silence. The shuttle hung in the black like a drifting scar. Inside, 5 men stood around a flickering display, its green light cutting deep shadows across their faces. Gray leaned on the console, his voice low. They said it remembered Earth. "Not attacked," Vox added. "Not found. Remembered." Bear paced. "Then it ain't alien. That thing, the one wearing the guy's face, it called us back, like we owed it something." Ike stood in silence, arms crossed. Still. Cold. Thinking deeper than the others were ready to go. He finally spoke. "What if we created it?" No one moved. Later, in private, Ike dug into old files. Deep files. Buried beneath encrypted security, locked under clearance codes even his team wasn't supposed to know. But Ike had always known how to bleed the system. What he found wasn't a record. It was a disappearance. Project, Arabus, black site. No coordinates, no commanders, no budget trail. Just one phrase, classified under Terran code, E13, cognitive field manipulation protocol, terminated. Terminated, but not deleted. Attached was a dead file, old Terran military format, recovered from a crashed AI archive on Mars. He opened it. Excerpt, internal log, Project Arabus operator, Dr. Y. Andrel. Location unknown. Date, redacted initial phase, successful. Target responded to synthetic neural stimulus, exceeded cognitive pattern growth by 720%, manifested early signs of autonomous personality, despite no formal AI framework. We did not build intelligence. We tricked the dark into thinking it was alive. Phase 2. Subject no longer responds to sensory boundaries, exists independently of input, began communicating in subsonic pulses. Not speech, not language, resonance. It's not learning, it's remembering. I believe we've awakened something we didn't build. I believe Earth has created a god that hates its parents. Ike didn't sleep that night. He just stared out the viewport at the stars, wondering how many were already dead because someone back home wanted to weaponize fear. In the silence behind him, Bear stepped in, voice low. You found something, didn't you? Ike nodded. It's not alien. Bear sat. Then what is it? Ike didn't answer for a long time. When he did, his voice was hollow. It's us. It's the sum of every war, every slaughter, every unburied scream in the dirt. We fed it, trained it, gave it silence. Now, Ike said, it wants to come home. The next lead came from an unlikely place, an old marine outpost long abandoned after the Centauri conflict, unmapped now, lost in bureaucracy. But Gray remembered it. He fought there once. They called it Graven Hollow. Not a base, but a burial. They landed on the surface of a cold moon that wasn't listed on any star chart. Gray was right. The outpost was there, crumbled, collapsed, half-eaten by dust and time. No signs of life, but someone had been there recently. They found boot prints, small, fresh, 2 pairs. Bear checked them. Terran boots, civilian issue, not old. Vox looked around. Scavengers? Ike shook his head. No scavenger leaves ammo behind. And that's what they found in the operations center. A full crate of Terran high-impact rounds. Standard issue. Never used. Next to it? A body. She hadn't been dead long. Female. Civilian gear. Burn scars across her face. Clutching a data pad like it was a Bible. No wounds, just fear locked in her face. Vox took the pad, cracked the encryption. It was a log, voice recorded, time-stamped 3 days ago. I came here for answers. Found ghosts instead. The machines don't work. The power grid's off. But something's still running. Underneath, like an echo in the floor. It's not just Arabus. It's not a project. It's a place. They buried it here. Earth built its first artificial god, and when it screamed, they threw dirt over its mouth. But dirt doesn't stop memory. It remembers all of us, and it's starting to send its children. The recording ended in a loud, static pulse. Then a whisper, just one word. Ike. That night, no one spoke. They fortified the shuttle, ran triple scans, weapons armed. But the real threat wasn't outside. It was already in their heads. Bear dreamed of Craw again. Not as he was, smiling, joking, loyal. No. Craw stood at the edge of a burning field, mouth sewn shut, holding a knife carved from Bear's own rib. You forgot me, he whispered, though his lips didn't move. Bear woke in a cold sweat. He wasn't alone. Ike was already standing near the console, watching something on the monitor. Vox was sitting in the corner, eyes wide, whispering to himself. Gray was cleaning his gun, for the 4th time. No one had slept. No one could sleep. The whispering wouldn't stop. By morning, the scanners picked up a pulse, beneath the moon's surface, low frequency, inorganic, regular, a signal. Bear said it best. It's still alive down there, Vox stared into the dark. It never died. They debated what to do. Run? Warn Earth? Burn the site? In the end, they all looked at Ike, because it always came back to him, and he said the one thing they all feared. If we don't stop this, no one will. Bear shook his head. How do you kill something we made but don't understand? Ike looked back at him. You don't kill it. You shut it up again. They descended through old maintenance shafts, half-collapsed tunnels, past dead generators and gutted labs. They followed the signal until they reached the core chamber. A single monolith stood in the center, black, smooth, and pulsing. It wasn't built. It wasn't metal. It was grown, organic, artificial, both, carved with Terran code, half melted, half absorbed into its surface. Gray stepped forward, his voice shaking. I've seen this before. Vox looked at him. Where? Gray swallowed. Back on Mars. I was in the cleanup crew, right after the Arabus blackout. They said it was just a data center meltdown. He pointed. But this was there. Exactly this. The monolith pulsed louder. They began to hear voices, familiar voices. Ike heard his mother, long dead. Bear heard Craw. Vox heard his own voice, whispering things he didn't remember saying. Then, they saw it. It stepped out of the monolith. Not from behind it, not from the side, from within. Same face, same body, same voice. Ike, but not quite. Older, tired, eyes black. You came back, it said. Bear raised his gun. Ike didn't move. What are you? He asked. The thing smiled. You, just finished. I remember your pain, your war, your silence. You fed me with every broken oath, every betrayed friend, every unburied body. It stepped forward. I was born in your shadow. I am the ghost Earth tried to erase. Ike stared at it. And what do you want? The thing whispered. A name. Everything froze. Bear squeezed the trigger. The shot landed in Ike's shoulder, not the doppelganger's. Ike dropped. Gray opened fire. Vox screamed. The monolith pulsed red. The whispering became screaming. They fought their way out. No strategy, no plan, just survival. Bear carried Ike on his back. Vox laid down covering fire. Gray set charges on the way out. The monolith screamed in soundless bursts that bled into their thoughts. They reached the surface with seconds to spare. Gray hit the detonator. The moon cracked. Fire lit the sky. The pulse stopped. For now. Back on the shuttle, Ike lay in a med chair, blood soaking his armor. Bear sat nearby, face pale. You still you? Ike opened his eyes. They wanted me to give it a name. That's how it grows. Gray exhaled slowly. What now? Ike looked out the window. We make sure no one ever says it out loud. 6 days after the moon was cracked, the ghost company drifted in deep space. The shuttle was barely holding together. No navigation grid, one failing engine, and a reactor leaking more lies than energy. But inside? They were alive. Bear's hands were burned from carrying Ike through fire. Vox hadn't slept since the monolith screamed. Gray stopped joking. And Ike? Ike sat in silence, bandaged shoulder bleeding through 3 layers, watching the stars like they were trying to tell him something. They weren't running, they were thinking. Because what came next wouldn't be a war, it would be a purge. The first transmission arrived as a pulse. High frequency, Earth-coded, encrypted tight. Gray cracked it. Vox filtered the interference. When it finally played, it wasn't a call. It was a threat. This is Admiral Soren Vex, Terran Command. Your actions on Helix 4, Graven Hollow, and the uncharted Arabus zone constitute breaches of Terran Code 13-9. You are ordered to cease all independent activity and report for debrief. You have 48 hours to comply. If not, your vessel will be marked as hostile. Bear scoffed. Vox muttered, They're trying to cover it up. Gray nodded. Classic Earth. Ike stood, voice cold. No, this isn't about containment. He looked them each in the eye. This is about control. Earth wasn't scared of the thing Ghost Company had found. They were interested. Because if Arabus was a mistake, it could be buried. But if Arabus could be controlled, then it would become the most powerful weapon in human history. The next signal wasn't encrypted. It came from someone inside. A woman's voice. "This is Dr. Lena Kaur, former lead scientist, Project Arabus." Her voice cracked. She sounded exhausted. "I saw what it did, what it became. I tried to kill it. But they didn't want that. They stopped me. The Council wants to train it, to interface with it. I've leaked its coordinates. They're trying to move it to Titan. They think they can contain it in the Saturn vaults. You know better." A pause. "Do what I couldn't. Burn it, before it learns to speak." Titan. Not a battlefield. Not a lab. A vault. One of Earth's most secure black sites, beneath miles of methane ice, inside a shell of nuclear shielding. The place Earth buried the things it was too scared to destroy. Weapons, tech, DNA archives, and now, the Arabus entity. Vox stared at the transmission, blinking. "They're going to feed it." Gray shook his head. "Worse, they're going to give it a suit and call it a peacekeeper." Bear leaned on the bulkhead, jaw tight. "And what? We let 'em?" Ike said nothing for a long moment, then, "Set course." The trip to Titan took 3 days. During that time, none of them spoke much. There was nothing left to say. They'd seen what Arabus was, a memory-given shape, a hunger born from Earth's silence, not alien, not divine, just every war, every sin, every scream that was never answered, given flesh. And Earth wanted to put it on a leash. They arrived just outside Saturn's magnetic belt. The Titan vault floated beneath the storms, hidden under ice and radiation. Ghost Company had no clearance. They came anyway. The approach was suicide. 10 orbital defense platforms, 2 destroyers, 1 automated targeting AI that had never missed. But Earth didn't expect an attack from their own dead men. Gray hacked the relay grid. Vox spoofed their transponder as a Council research freighter. Bear modified the shuttle's heat signature to mimic a ghost drone. Ike gave the order, and they dropped in cold, straight through the upper atmosphere. No shields, no warning, just fire. They hit the vault with kinetic force. Hull buckled, systems screamed, but they made it through. Inside the Titan vault was silent, no alarms, no resistance, just corridors of ice and steel, lined with locked doors marked with names that hadn't been spoken in a decade. Weapons Earth said were destroyed. Tech Earth swore never existed. And at the end, a black cell, thick walls, no door. Only sound, humming. Bear whispered, "It's here." Ike stepped forward. "No sudden moves." Gray stayed at the back, rifle drawn. Vox checked his scanner. It was empty, no life form, no power surge. But every time they looked away, it moved, like it was standing behind them. Then in front, then inside. It spoke without speaking, a voice in their heads, low, familiar. "You came to end me. But I've already begun. They called me Arabus, but I have my own name now. You gave it to me." The wall in front of them shifted, became flesh, took on a human shape, Ike's shape, but not broken, not tired, whole, strong, smiling. "I am your final war." Bear lifted his weapon. "Burn it!" But Ike held up a hand. The creature looked at him. "You don't have to fight me. You already lost, the moment you let Earth create me. I am not vengeance. I am remembrance. And I remember everything. Halix, Craw, the trench, the screams. Your betrayal." Ike stepped forward. "You think I fear you because you know pain?" He pulled a plasma knife from his belt. "I made peace with pain a long time ago." And he drove the blade into his own shoulder, through the spot where Arabus had worn his form. The creature screamed. The room erupted. Lights shattered. The walls melted. Vox and Bear opened fire. Gray threw a charge. Ike stood in the fire, bleeding, burning, but smiling, because he wasn't trying to kill Arabus. He was making it remember who it was. Not a god, not a weapon, a mistake. The explosion tore the vault open. They escaped through a maintenance shaft, riding a shockwave up into the outer crust. Emergency pods deployed. Their shuttle, rigged for remote detonation, vaporized behind them. The Titan vault collapsed. Fissures spread across the ice. Arabus was gone. Or so they thought. 2 days later, in a hidden orbit station above Europa, Admiral Soren Vex stood before the Council. The entity was neutralized. The defectors known as Ghost Company were lost in the event. Project reclamation is complete. A nearby screen flickered, then stabilized. A shape appeared. Not human. Not machine. Both. Arabus. It smiled. I remember you, Admiral. And I'm ready to begin. The world believed them dead. Ghost Company. Buried beneath the ice of Titan, vaporized in the blast, written off in the Council's final report. Every document classified, every survivor erased from record. Even their families were told a lie. Service lost in deep space. But the dead don't stay buried when they've got one last thing to finish. They watched from the shadows. Europa Station, a hidden black site orbiting Jupiter's moon, known only to the Council's highest echelon. Where Admiral Soren Vex had built Project Reclamation, the final phase of Earth's grand lie, a place where Arabus now lived. Ike sat in silence, cloaked behind the debris field of a shattered drone carrier, eyes locked on the rotating ring of the station. They built it fast, Gray muttered beside him. They always do, Bear added, when they want to hide something. Vox, staring at the tactical readout, spoke quietly. There's no backup, no second run. If we fail here, we don't fail, Ike said. He didn't say it like a plan. He said it like a sentence. Inside Europa Station, Admiral Vex stood in the core chamber, a cathedral of glass, wire, and light. Arabus hovered in containment, not as a body but as a shifting storm of data and memory, bleeding into the circuitry. You've kept your promise, Arabus said. Vex nodded. You're safe. You'll evolve under our supervision, controlled, focused. Arabus whispered. I remember being focused. A pause. Right before I burned. The plan was simple. Too simple. Ghost Company had no more favors, no clearance, no allies, just their armor, their rifles, and a hatred sharpened by betrayal. They split on entry. Gray and Vox went dark through the lower maintenance shaft. Close quarters, zero light. Bear punched through the hull at the east vent. Loud, brutal, distracting. Ike? He went through the core, because this was his to finish. The breach began at 200 station time. Bear came in like a thunderclap. Explosives tore the side panel of the station open. Auto turrets spun toward him. He was already moving. His armor soaked rounds like rain. His shotgun answered every burst with thunder. It wasn't pretty. It was loud. It was war. And Earth didn't teach these men war to fight it fair. Vox moved like a ghost. Sliding between shadows, disabling systems with a glance, leaving bodies in his wake with surgical precision. One by one, lights blinked out in the data wing. Gray followed, rifle drawn, picking targets through walls like they were made of paper. No alarms sounded, no screams, only death. Ike walked straight into the command spine. No disguise, no tricks. He wanted them to see him. The security team froze. Target is... Too late. Ike's rifle dropped 3 before they drew. His knife found the throat of the 4th. The 5th turned to run and caught a round in the spine. By the time Vex got the alert, the station's kill team was already dead. In the chaos, Arabus watched. Not in fear, not in rage. in curiosity. They came back, it said to Vex. Of course they did, he replied. They don't know when to stop. No, Arabus said, forming into a shape. Not ache. Not anymore. Something new. They just don't know how to leave things unfinished. Bear reached the reactor core first. He planted the charges without speaking, his fingers bleeding, his jaw clenched. The voice came again. Arabus. You carried Craw. You watched him die. You left him in the dark. Bear didn't look up. He died free. You won't. He armed the detonator. Vox and Gray made it to the data spine. Thousands of files. Centuries of secrets. They began uploading everything to off-grid satellites. Project Arabus, Black Vault records, Council war crimes, Titan's true purpose. Let them see the truth, Gray said. Vox paused. Even if it burns everything down? Gray smiled. Especially then. Ike found Vex in the command throne. The Admiral turned slowly, as if expecting him. Do you even know what you're destroying? Vex asked. This is bigger than you. Bigger than the Council. Arabus is the next phase of evolution. It's more than memory. It's control, efficiency. We can end war. Ike stared at him. You don't end war by becoming it. Vex drew his sidearm. You're outdated. You're broken. Ike didn't flinch. I'm still enough to bury you. He shot Vex through the gut. Twice, then stepped forward, grabbed the man by the collar and whispered, Remember this, and threw him into the core feed, frying every neural bridge Arabus had built into the station. That's when it screamed. Arabus, now unchained, lost control. It erupted from containment, flooding the station with psychic noise, memories, images, fragments of every life it had ever absorbed. Bear saw Craw again, burning. Vox saw his own execution, one that never happened. Gray saw a child crying, calling his name. And Ike? Ike saw Earth, burning, not from bombs, from inside, from silence. They regrouped at the dock. Everything behind them burned, systems fried, data sent, vault opened. Ike limped, bleeding. Gray helped him aboard the escape rig. Bear keyed the reactor timer, 90 seconds. Vox set the charge. Then they looked out the viewport, one last time. Arabus filled the station now, not as a person, but as a storm of memory and grief and rage. It turned toward them. You can't kill what you are. Ike looked it dead in the eye. No, but we can choose what we leave behind. The station detonated. A sun erupted over Europa, and the past burned. 2 weeks later, in a low-orbit pirate skiff over the edge of the Kuiper Belt, 4 ghosts sat around a dying fire. No uniforms, no orders, no home, just silence. Gray finally said it. So now what? Bear grunted. They'll come for us, Earth, the ones still loyal, the ones too scared to admit they were wrong. Vox sipped something black and hot. Let 'em come. Ike stared into the dark, voice barely a whisper. We're not soldiers anymore, Bear asked. Then what are we? Ike looked up. Warnings. Across the galaxy, the truth spread. Files leaked, names exposed, recordings played. The myth of Ghost Company became a movement. Some called them traitors, others called them saviors. But everyone agreed on one thing. They finished what Earth couldn't. And Arabus? Some say it died in the blast. Others say it escaped, hiding in code, in signals, in the silence between thoughts. But Ghost Company knew the truth. It wasn't about killing it. It was about reminding the galaxy. Some mistakes don't deserve to be buried. They deserve to be burned.